Good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well. This was planned to be a fireside chat, so my split personality will take effect. I'm going to ask myself a question, and then I'm going to attempt to answer it. I don't know which personality you're going to get, but often in fireside chats, I often wonder, I got to start bringing a fireplace with me. I think that's actually mandatory, is it not? So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys today. Yes, I do work for a software company. We're a $1.4 billion software company. We're one of the largest out there. But I am not here to sell you software, I promise. There's nothing hidden in here. That's not the purpose of this session. What's really cool about who we are as HCL Software, you see branded here this idea of true north. And what we really believe is software companies have to change. I was going to ask this provocative question. How many people really like buying software? Probably not many, right? You got to ask for money, you got to make a business case, and everyone says it costs too much, right? We all know that. What's really cool about what we're trying to do is change the paradigm of what it means to actually work with a software company. Hence, we created this idea of True North, which basically, Leonida's joined us. The principle of it, and we can start when you're ready. Basically, the principle of it is we are focused on helping our clients identify and unlock value around their strategy, their design issues. And really believe in the software business, good to meet you, really should be a gratis thing. Software companies ought to be coming in with ideas and thinking, new thoughts about how to progress your business forward, because the advantage we have is we see businesses cross industry verticals. We see patterns emerge. And more importantly, unlike a consultancy, which was mostly half of my career was digital agency side, in software companies, we have to harden things. We actually have to put AI capabilities and CDPs and experience platforms and personalization engines. We have to harden that innovation, which means we've got to root it in actually design that you can take and scale. So what we've done is, and I think our topic today is to talk about the impact of digital personalization, is to kind of take you through a little bit of the journey of what we've been seeing out there in the market and share some ideas.
Excellent. And thank you for getting us started. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I don't want you to feel cheated. That's all I'll introduce you when you go off stage.
No worries at all.
You did. You're right about the personalization, and I have a few questions for you. Mm-hmm. Because personalization is such a hot topic.
Yeah.
It's everywhere. We're all talking about it. And AI is a hot topic. And everyone's talking about that. But in reality, what do you think customers really want?
Yeah, I think, and I got to get the clicker. I'm going to advance because I did bring a few props, but I want this to be also more conversation. I think what customers are really looking for, and we've heard a lot about it today in some of the sessions, is experiences is what happens to you, is what I'd like to say, but engagement's a choice. And I think what's missing for most companies is figuring out what is that engagement model they want to have. And to figure that out, that's a design problem. It's not a technology problem. It's not a data problem. It's actually a design issue. For a couple years, I worked with Rhode Island School of Design, and one of the things, we partnered with them, and we really sat with clients to figure out and unpack some of the actual issues they had to get out of this sort of siloed thinking. And all of you know what's on this chart. Every one of you knows this, right? Products and the number of products you have per family and per household, and per person is low, and people have lots of choice. Why is that? A lot of the reasons is obviously trying to get down into why are people interacting with you at that moment in time, that key moment of truth, and how do you make it an engagement? Just to give you an example, I don't know if my client from years ago is in the room, but funny story, and we talked about this in one of the earlier sessions you had, was how do you unpack what the problem is? Well, a lot of times digital transformation and engagement models doesn't need $10 million, $5 million consultancy to figure it out. We had this novel idea to go behind a teller line in one of our retail banks that I was working with for about 5 years and actually observe the customer experience. And we did it for weeks on end. And we noticed a situation that popped up that all of a sudden there's a teller interacting with the customer. Customer comes in to cash a check, $1,000. Guess what? Not enough in their checking account to cover the check. Customers refused. I can't cover that. I'd like to speak to the manager, please. Yes, can I help you? Yes, I wish to close my CD account. There's $1.5 million in it. Yikes. I mean, talk about experience. What's engaged? So you know what we did? This was, yeah, exactly. I just lost a big customer. Now this was a merger of two, right after a merger of two branches, so banks, so they didn't have the data.
Yes.
So what did we do? We put a VIP flag on the customer profile when they showed up. One simple change. All of a sudden, and somebody asked the question in the room, how do you get justification for projects like this? It's that first-party research of making the people that you're interacting with as a business real to your board and to your leadership to say, Susan, who is a premier customer, we lost her because we didn't meet her needs at that moment. Now, VIP flag is one way to do it. What did this thing do? It transformed our whole strategy of retail branch systems, and we completely reimagined the design and moved it from a transactional-based experience to a customer-based experience. What did we have to prove to them? Don't worry about the queue. The queue is always the problem. You don't want a long queue, push people to the ATM. No, you're trying to change to an engagement model, engagement approach. And that's what we think are just some of the biggest challenges. By the way, that problem, 1995. So we fixed it and changed how banking was done for that particular branch, or bank.
That's interesting, too, because when I look at the landscape of banking, retail banking, primarily consumer banking, and there was, across the landscape, de novo after de novo, like new bank. And so many people now may not know what a bank is in terms of financial services, all of the things that are available. And then transitioning that group of services into a digital experience where you're touched. Because I loved your example of VIP, and I think there's a lot of that has happened where competitors are able to swoop in and grab the highest level in a competitor because of the due diligence and the solutions that they're providing.
100%.
So just curious about, with this kind of the digital piece, 1 second please, of the change that we're all feeling and that we're all contributing to. So in terms of, you and your global team, with work with many of the top banks around the world, what are they telling you that is slowing down the ability to activate and do a personalization strategy? Like, where are they getting in their own way?
Yeah, where are they getting stuck? And I think all of you can probably resonate with this. And I've got a couple slides to sort of illustrate this point. We didn't rehearse this at all, just making that clear. So
I'm like, you think? So I come late after he introduces himself. So clearly, there's a gap.
We did talk on the phone, though.
We did. No, we absolutely did.
We did.
Yep.
That's why we have a high degree of confidence coming up here.
Absolutely.
So really, the way I try to think about it and what's blocking, I think, customers, and I think previous people have said this, I'm stuck in my own data, I'm stuck in either siloed processes and things like that, right? Different divisions of the bank can't interact with each other, don't want to share customer information with each other. Where we tend to start with a lot of clients and what they're talking to us about, and one of our clients, they have 450 million customers. It's one of the largest banks, I think it's the 48th largest bank in the world. And they're on this journey right now to pivot towards a journey-based experience versus a transactional experience by trying to get better at understanding intent. And so I think we had a topic, our cookies going away and all of this stuff, right? And we're under the premise of maybe, maybe not. The pendulum, I think as someone said, might be swinging one way or the other. We believe no matter what, because we have to deal globally, regulatory policies are going to constantly change. So you need to be able to have what we call a platform of trust, a platform that will allow you, and I'm not talking about HCL software here, I'm talking about building a trusted platform. Maybe our software helps it, maybe it doesn't. That's not the point. The point is, can it garner trust of the consumer experience to drive to this fact of get to intent-based goals, behavior-based goals? So the types of things we're trying to incorporate into the platform to break these barriers down is get smart about, A, the customer journey. So one thing we've done for clients, Gratis, is built based on experience, their global big book of journeys, we call it. And within that, defining the specific personas and then the intent of those personas. What are they actually after? And then putting in the behavioral analytics that you can, and this goes way past just tag management. This gets into actually capturing session data and actually first-party data that you have to figure out what the intent was of that particular customer. And then nailing that in real time into a proper CDP, which is an overused word in the industry. How many have worked on MDM and customer 360 projects, right? They've all, I don't want to say failed, but they've not worked. They've been not worth the ROI. We've said get a narrow lane of capability around what you want to activate a CDP to do. And it shouldn't be expensive because you shouldn't have to pay to unlock your data, is our philosophy. So we're saying provide that better as a low-cost service to be able to optimize getting into intent of customer behavior to say at that point in time, this is what this person's looking for in their life and create a longer lasting relationship. So I think the barrier we're seeing is getting into product silos and missing this thought of standing behind a tower line and just getting to be able to tell that simple story. And it's amazing, whenever I've done very large transformation deals, the North Star, hence True North, that's why I came up with it, was to figure out that one customer. And the CEO and the COO and the CFO go running around and that's all they talk about is that one or two customers. And that sort of unleashes these kind of projects to get into intent-based marketing and getting into always-on journeys and starting in narrow ways. Don't try to cook the whole thing.
So when you are not trying to boil the ocean and you're very focused, do you have a linear roadmap of when you pull triggers to say, this is our ideal avatar, these are all of the services that we provide. So let's say there are 5 services that you provide and your client's only taking advantage of one. How do you sequence that? Keep everyone across your network engaged and utilize your marketing solutions to help that client understand why they should be moving money. And it could be a corporation, it could be an entrepreneurship. How are you building that business case and engaging this extended team to get to the yes on all of those solutions?
It's a stepwise process that we sort of create. This is one of the reasons why we're finding companies are coming to us more than just for software, but for design and also services to figure out how to do this. We're actually creating roadmaps with our clients on not only how to consume this software across the various aspects and different divisions, but also the business value that it renders at each step, at each move. So there's one client, it really works. There's one client, you might have their device in your pocket. They're just down the road a little bit. And believe it or not, they had this problem. Their business model was not to market. Their business model is much more about products. I think you probably know who I'm talking about. And they're rooted in a high degree of privacy. But this is exactly to your point. They had to convince the different services that they offer, right? Music, photos, arcade, whatever the case may be. I'm not giving it away too much. And they had to convince them that if we just do a touch of personalization and a touch of campaigning, we could engage them differently. And so they were a product-based marketing company. They marketed 7 times a year based on product launches, give or take. And then they would drag in their services and say, oh, by the way, oh, by the way, oh, by the way. We changed their whole model to do now 250 campaigns per day across 12 shared service lines. And we created a shared service marketing team that would work with the product silos, but we centralized it. And then what we gave each service team was basically a consumption roadmap to say, I need this level of marketing service and data and AI for this division, but for this division, I need very lightweight and just simple. So some divisions had more money than other divisions. And so they created a really cool shared model whereby they could optimize cost and then ultimately move to this 250 campaigns per day they grew then from 1.25 billion people to 2.5 billion audience records. I mean, it's unbelievable, generating about 5 billion in incremental revenue, but more importantly, changing conversion from 10 to 20% in some lines. And once you saw it take off, we created this governance committee that all of a sudden you could take it to the top lines and go, you see what we're doing over here? We could do that for you. And all of this, by the way, rooted in a very strict privacy policy. Privacy first, data use very limited, but still used. So a high-powered CDP, our CDP is driving about 8 billion transactions per day that we got to process in real time. And then figuring out, okay, what targeted information. But the way we got it was prove each division's success, but create a shared service so we optimize scale.
And then where you've got that on a need-to-know basis, even within that organization, you're able to pull together compelling information to get greater stickiness, more products in the market, greater loyalty and value.
Yep.
I love it. That's great.
And their focus was not revenue, strangely. Their focus is experience.
Yes, yes.
Now, for that, they get away with that, but not every company does. But I'd argue what you guys are saying, some of your companies are 100 years old or more. So you're a trusted brand. So how do you activate that and say, you've trusted us for so long for all of these things, harness that brand power by now offering and saying, but that means I also understand you. You understand me, but I understand you. Now it's just about dialing up and down based on regulatory and privacy, how far you want to go with that. These engines that we bring to market, that it's rooted in trying to solve that very specific problem.
No, and that is a straddle where a number of businesses that are behemoth are over 100 years old. Right. And you have clientele that has high expectations and is demanding more. And to your point, the kind of what brought us to the dance may not keep us there. Right. But how do you ensure that you are staying loyal to what is your core, but being kind of sexier, pushing it in to go get more? Because the proliferation of competition right now is unbelievably good. Yep. I mean, it's just, so there can be a piece that a client provides and a decision maker can choose to get two pieces someplace else and integrate it to make it feel the same way as the original concept.
Right.
So I would love to,
How do you solve that
yes,
problem?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if so how do you do that? And I think one of the tables was talking about generative. I did go to college, I swear. Generative AI. I'm old. What are you going to do? I think to answer that question, the change has got to come around providing rich, relevant content and information at the right point in time. It's one thing to get hyper-personalized. And I remember, I think it was the MasterCard pitch. Very well done. How do you, for loyalty purposes, how do you hyper-personalize at the key moment of truth? Well, the real challenge here isn't getting down to the segment of one, which pretty much most technologies can do. We just think we do it better. So I have to sell some software here. Yeah, and it's our Unica platform that I'm talking about, which many are going, that's still alive? Yes, it's still alive. Very much so. But creating the right content to line up to that experience is key. And let me give you an example. And that's how you change. Big known gaming company out there had a particular problem. Very complex game, video game, and this is where cross-industry examples I think really apply well. And gameplay, on day of launch, they would do more than a movie would do in a year. And it's a huge day. Problem is, games are so difficult, the atrophy curve was like this. And they never could figure out why. And we sort of looked at it as a design challenge. They didn't even want to consider it. And again, a well-known game, well-established. This is something people are loyal to, right? So similar to a long-term bank. And so what did we do? Well, we put in some very specific focused AI/ML algorithms to be able to figure out what's going on in actually every single click of the gameplay. So we literally are able to track at 7 trillion data points per day, every single action in that game. Everything, every footstep, every grenade throw, everything. And we could figure out within 5 to 10 seconds when the person was going to leave the game. And we found 7 triggers. And this is an example of how do you apply data and get to insights. I love how somebody, I forget who described that, that's exactly right. Don't try to boil the ocean with the CDP. Try to apply a CDP for a specific goal and purpose. In this case, it was let's reduce churn. We found the 7 triggers, but what we had to do is create the content. That's where it got difficult. With some of the generative AI technology, we were actually able to create about 700,000 different email templates that would go to gamers of different types and personas, targeted. Come on back, we know you're frustrated, get free points, get this, get that. And all of a sudden what we found was it took off on social media, and the gamers who never share anything about this email marketing were taking photos of the emails and tweeting them out, and now all of a sudden that just became this huge buzz. So how do you activate a long-term company? You change by finding how do you create rich, relevant content down to the new individual that maybe it's the My father and mother banked here. Now I'm just automatically there because they banked there. Well, actually, I'm there because it helped me transfer money more quickly into my account and pay my bills. But that's the trick. We think it's content, assets, and material at the right point in time and a key moment of truth for that consumer. And last, I'll close on one point. Healthcare. The most god-awful experience that you could ever have, right? What took off? Telehealth.
Teledoc too, yes,
COVID.
yes.
So all of a sudden, so if you think about it, if people are willing to share health information online, my wife refuses to log in to get her electronic medical record. She didn't even know that was a thing. She's freaked out about it.
Tell her it's okay. It's okay.
No, I can't.
Okay. You're like, I've chosen my battles.
Yeah, exactly. That's not one of my battles.
Okay.
But the trust that has been garnered, I think finding cross-industry proof points to convince your leadership that this is the right thing to do can help make the argument. Because if people are more trusting for healthcare, I think they'll be trusting of your long-term established bank interacting with customers in new and different ways because people are expecting it now. That's the biggest outcome I got out of COVID.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it really is around, because I was looking at the data pre-COVID and then post-COVID of the number of people who developed cancer while they were in lockdown.
Right.
Because they didn't feel safe to go have symptoms addressed.
Right.
So now you've got this kind of proliferation and it's pushing on healthcare of people who should have been seen 2 years ago. And now they realize, oh, I need to take this action so that I can have this more, so I can arc up for the rest of my life and actually have a life. And that dynamicism has changed so much also in healthcare. I look at the practices where during COVID, the administration was giving physicians packages to leave. So now you don't have a pipeline that you've developed that is as robust for people to become physicians. Like you just call that out. You don't have, and you have to wait for your specialist a year, 6 months. So nothing against healthcare. It's just what I've observed of all of these different points of opportunity for failure because your patient's also your customer.
Right.
So you've got all of these opportunities where you can fail, but you have opportunities where you can grow, create greater value. And then you also have in the marketplace, again, healthcare, administrative, business, making decisions to, cannibalize and become bigger and stronger. So fewer healthcare offerings, not offerings like actual products and services, but they keep leaping and consolidating. So then from a trust, you mentioned trust. So it's having that, okay, how do I still trust? Now I have a new physician that's being recommended to me. And I think really marketing, digital marketing in that space is so critical to
it's vital.
Create trust.
And we're talking about your life now.
Yes.
And your health. And so all of a sudden, and that content's got to be trusted on top of it. So right campaign, right information. That's why for us, healthcare is a booming sector for our business. And where I'm talking to financial services companies is that the same should be true. Life events, inflation, credit card rates, high interest, all of that stuff, right? How do I manage all this? Becoming a trusted advisor around your content strategy means when I'm behind the login, I'm not talking about marketing websites, front-end stuff. I'm sorry, anybody can do that. I don't want to trivialize it, but we all understand how to do that, really. It's when you get behind the login and you're in intent mode. That's when you want to capture them. It's that mid-funnel moment where you want to crush that relationship, not turn them off. And I should have added this earlier. We were talking about this. On the flip side, the same has to be true for the employee experience.
Yes.
See, what is so overlooked is I want to call someone. And what did I got? I got a CRM system that just says, okay, Larry called. Great, type in Larry called.
Right.
Well, what did Larry want? Well, Larry wanted this. Well, that doesn't help.
Right.
It's more, why isn't the experience that the call center person's getting the highly robust, tailored experience that the customer was getting? But it's superpower users. It's being able to have more of a conversation. And we have a design we call the high-tech, high-touch digital design divide. So basically the premise there is we want to create a robust experience-based platform, and I use platform in the air quotes, that supports the interaction of the customer digitally online but also with the employee and do it in a seamless way. And that gets so overlooked, and I'd argue that's actually more important, and it's important in healthcare too. I mean, the physician and the
agreed.
provider, you know, they need that information as much as the patient does.
Well, and to your point, like employees are influencers. Each and every one of those employees and his or her experience, it will, there's two ways to go. Yes, I love where I work. It goes into all of that kind of subliminal, I love what I'm doing.
Yep.
This is amazing. But then when we make it a little rough and bumpy and just like, and the employee's like, what?
Right.
This sucks.
That's awful.
I've heard that it's better over here, and I'm going to take a look.
With a capital S.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, I have one more question for
Sure.
you, and then we'll open it up to the audience. And that is, whoops, I don't know why I keep wanting to do that. Oh, gosh. And it was a really good question.
Yeah, that's
okay.
all right. That's all right.
So given banks are product focused,
Yeah.
Small to large, how do they start to make the journey towards an engagement strategy that is rooted in personalization?
So I think the real trick on all this, and anytime you have a chat like this, I like to present something provocative that maybe not everybody's doing, or it's something new. Because I think if we're not constantly trying to come up with a first mover idea or a first mover advantage, you get overrun
Yes.
by the competition. So one way we're finding how clients can get started on this and how they can move to this personalization objective is to start thinking about maybe this idea of digital twinning. And the concept's an interesting idea. It has the notion of basically taking your core systems and your customer experience systems and creating a digital copy of it. And the idea around that is, now with AI and a lot of the tech, this has gotten a lot cheaper to do. We used to do it in user testing and some very manual ways, but it was very rudimentary. Now you can actually make fundamentally digital copies of your entire ecosystem and run simulations against it to say, and long-term simulations. If I send out this campaign against this persona, what's likely to happen? And then train the AI models, this is stuff that we're working on in our software, train the AI models to be able to then render back what that experience might or might not be. This is where you can start applying a lot of third-party data and other market research, too, to apply to it. And test these ideas. With this, you can do things like testing the campaigns that you're going to run against that over a long period of time. You can test privacy policy. You can apply regulatory policies against it to figure out, is this working or not? Because putting campaigns out in production, right, very expensive, right? You got to make a business case, and then you got to pray it works, and you got to go optimize. Well, then you say, oh, I'll do multivariate testing. Okay, how long ago have we been doing that, right? I mean, that's yesterday. We think tomorrow is more about being able to run simulations against your entire ecosystem. So then you can actually figure out, okay, this idea works or not. And I wouldn't suggest this for your basic campaigns, but if you're trying to redesign how you go about doing things in a new channel or a new product or a new offering, this is a cool way to do it.
Excellent. Well, we have time for one question.
One question. 33 seconds. What happened? I just had some next steps that I was going to throw out for you guys, but I can do that real quick.
Yes.
I get often asked, how do we start? This is great. This is awesome. How the heck do we start? I mentioned earlier, software companies need to change. We think we're at the forefront of that. And what we've done with clients, and again, this is gratis. I've got people with about 450 years of digital agency experience on my team. What we do with clients is set up these kind of first mover series, and it's design thinking workshops. It's stepping back and going, this is the challenge I've got. How would I solve it? And the recommendation we've done with clients is, don't just bring us in, bring in your key partners. No salespeople, no account managers. Have your partners bring in people you work with every day. I want to hear your top designer. We're going to run a design thinking session offline around this topic and come up with what are some of the ideas that would be our first mover advantage. Put them to work, hence this expect more theme I've got. Look at creating an engagement strategy out of that, rooted in personalization, highly targeted, with a thoughtfulness of applying data, not enterprise CDP, but fundamentally just basics of a CDP, I think is a good backbone and approach. And consider maybe something like digital twinning or even the concept of it, or other concepts that you've got. But I think at the end of the day, what I think I heard in one session was, listen to your customer, stand behind the tower line, engage and activate what that knowledge is, and use that to justify everything that you try to do. That I think is a trick.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
That was awesome.
Real pleasure.
Yes,
Cheers.
absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I love it.